In this video, we are going to demonstrate some of the key things you must know in solving questions relating to a rectangle and a plane figure. So, talking about plane figures here, these are some of the examples of plane figures that we'll be talking about in our subsequent video. So, you may consider subscribing to the channel. If you don't know what a plane figure is, you can assume a plane figure to be like something like this, right? A plain sheet, a paper, right? So something of this nature. Is that okay? So we have a different shapes of this type. So these are some of the shapes that I've already explained. So now the key here is that solely talking about what the rectangle in this video. Then the key here is that relating to this question, now we want to find the length, right? So the length, that's what the question is saying. So we should find the length of this information. This is the rectangle that we are giving. Now the key here is that one thing you must focus on is you must understand that some of the properties or the definitions of a rectangle says that from here to here, if $2 or maybe two people can be on this line, the same people also has to be what in this line. So we can say that the opposite lines here are equal, right? So that's just a simple definition. So okay, whoever is here must be the same person that will be here, and then the same applies to the top here. So whoever is here must be the same person or must be the same distance as the down here. So here you can see that if here was supposed to be 2, then we are also having 2 here. If here is 5, and then we must have 5 here. With this idea in mind, you can easily apply that in solving this type of question. Okay, by the way, under a rectangle, when you say find the length of the rectangle, we are talking about the longest side. So maybe from here to here is the length, right? So this side here is going to be the length here, right? So this side here can be our length. Is that okay? And then this in some cases that should be the width or maybe the breadth, right? So in whichever these two is accepted, right? So don't be confused anytime you come across these two people. Now that is the key, the first step in solving this type of problem. So these things in some cases may look a little bit complicated, but the key here is that if you know what to use and how to use it, you are free to go. Now let's start solving the problem. Now that we know what we are looking for, which is the length in this case, and 2, you also know that some of the properties of a rectangle that says that these two sides are equal. We can start, right? So we are looking for the length here, right? So remember, we have this thing being involved in with some variables. So we can say that maybe since opposite of, right? So this is how to answer the question. Opposite of opposite sides. So you can say something of that nature. So opposite sides of what a rectangle are equal, right? So equal, right? So this should be a starting point, right? Because they are equal. Since the opposite sides of a rectangle are equal, so we have this guy here, which is the 4x plus 3, can solely be equal to who? The guy at the down here. That is the x, right? So that here should be x, and then you have x here plus 6y. Is that okay? If you don't know this thing, that is where you are going to find it difficult in solving some questions like this, right? Okay, so perfect. Here we know our simple algebra here, so we are going to group the like terms. So maybe let's say 4x here, right? So we have 4x here. This guy is also x here, so this x can come to this side, or maybe you can subtract x from both sides of the equation, whichever way, right? So once you cross the equal sign here, you are going to be negative, so you have negative s here, and then you have this guy to be positive 3, and then why don't you send everything to the this side of the equation, and then let's see where we are heading towards to. So this guy also tends to be negative 6y, everything equal to 0, right? So from here and this guy, we are going to have 3s. Remember, this is algebra. So since this guy and this guy are coming from the same family, what I mean by the same family, they are all carrying what x and x here. So we can easily deal with the numbers. So we have 4 here minus 1 here, right? So that's why I got my 3x here, and then plus 3, and then minus 6y, right? Is that okay? So perfect. Now you see this thing here requires us to know something. What are you supposed to know before you can proceed from here? You must know how to solve a different types of equations and some of something of this nature. So the idea here is a simultaneous equation, right? So that is the idea. That's the key here. So I can rewrite this thing to be 3x here. Variables on one side of the equal sign here. So I'm having minus 6y here, that is equal to, this guy can jump out because you don't involve any variable here. So that's going to be, once you cross the equal sign, your sign might sort of change, right? So maybe you subtract 3 from both sides of the equation, whichever way is accepted here. So here we have negative 3. So here we can name this one to be equation 1. Yeah, okay, why are we naming this thing equation? Because we've not finished arriving at what our final answer, right? That is why we are naming this guy here to be equation 1. Of course, the question says you should find the length. You must have a figure at the end here. So what will be the whole figure here? It must be the same figure on the top here, right? So of course, that is where we are heading towards to. Since we've not arrived at what our final answer here, we can proceed to the question and see if you have another information available. Here we have what another information here that says that here we have this guy here is also equal to this guy, right? Based on the definitions of what a rectangle, this guy here is also equal to this. So maybe I guess you should pause the video and come back and come and see the answer that you get at the end after equating this one to this. So okay, we have this 4x minus y equal to this 3x and then plus 1, right? So here we can group. So this guy can be 4x minus 3x here. That's going to be equal to, we already have 1 here, right? So let's say, why don't you go straight forward and write it in this nature, right? So maybe if you are finding difficulty in doing that, maybe that is okay. So let's proceed. So we have what our what our 1 here, and then here already we have a negative 1. So let's make it like the negative y, right? So we have this guy comes here, that will be y, and then what is going to be equal to positive 1. Is that okay? Because we want us to look similar to the previous equation. So here we are having what we are just left with x, right? So because this 4 minus 3 will give us x, and then minus y here is going to be equal to 1. Yeah, here we can name this one to be what equation 2. Is that okay? So here we are having two different equation here. So here's the equation 1, and then we have the equation 2. So from the equation 1, look at something. From the equation 1, I can see 3 throughout what my members. What I mean by members here, I can see 3 here. I can see 3 out of the negative 6. I can also see 3 out of the negative. So why don't we divide everything by what 3 here? So if I divide everything by 3 here, I'm going to have the x here, and then here divide here by 2. That should divide here by 3, right? So there is going to be what 2y here, and then that is equal divide here by 3. That should be a negative 1. Is that okay? So this will be our original equation 1 after simplify, right? So for simplicity, you may proceed like this. You arrive at the same answer, but for simplicity case, then we can easily divide everything by 3, right? Okay, now here are the two strong equations that we are having. Now, so this is what we call what a simultaneous equation, right? If you don't know how to solve the simultaneous equation, I have a full video on our channel, so maybe consider subscribing. Check our playlist down below for you to have a more idea. So there are two ways of solving this thing. Here we have the elimination method and then substitution, whichever way is accepted, right? So here you are not restricted to use either elimination or by substitution. You can only use one of the method if you are restricted, right? So maybe let's say specific, the question say by elimination you should use that, or by substitution you should use that. But if the question is open, then you can go for any method that you want to. I don't know which method you want to use here. Maybe if you don't know how to do any of the two methods, let's check our playlist for more content. So here maybe by substitution I can say that from what this equation, right? Equation 2, right? So from equation, you have to write this thing, right? So from equation 2 I can say that my x here is going to be 1 plus or plus y. So here we are solving out by our substitution. So once we have the x to be equal to 1 plus y, we can easily take this x to be 1 plus y and plug that into the first question, right? So the first equation. So meaning that wherever you see the x there, we are going to replace the x by 1 plus or plus y. So here the x begins. So that is going to be 1 plus or y here minus 2y, right? From here. And then everything is equal to negative 1. Right? So here we can easily solve this thing. Is that okay? We can easily solve this thing in some case. So maybe let's move this number here to the other side of the equation. So we have this y minus so 2y here, that is equal to negative 1. This guy also comes here to be a negative 1, right? Okay, perfect. So here, what about these two people? So here, remember what is happening. This is y, this is also another y. So here we are just having 1 minus 2, that is equal to negative 1. So here meaning that we have a negative y, that is equal to negative 2. So here, remember, we are not looking for any negative or variable here. So we are going to divide it by negative 1 and then divide everything by negative so that this negative can cancel out. So we have a, this means that we have a y to be equal to 2, right? So once we have the y to be equal to 2, boom, we are done, right? So we are almost done here. So if your y is equal to 2, we already know the x is equal to 1 plus or plus y. So since our y is equal to 2, here we are going to have 1 plus or plus 2, right? So we are replacing this y by 2, meaning that our x is equal to 3. Now that we have our x to be equal to 3 and then the y to be equal to 2 here, we can easily find the length, right? So this is how simple you solve some of the questions like this. So how we are just going to replace, right? So replace the x from here or maybe from here. Verify if you are going to have the same ancestors. So from here we have what 4x, our x is 3, right? So you have the x to be equal to 3 here. That plus or plus 3, that's going to be here is going to be 12, and then plus or plus 3, that's equal to 15. Try this down here. Substitute the value and tell me if you are going to have the same or 15 here, because the question says that, or maybe the properties of the rectangle says that this line here and then this line here are the same.